Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living the Liberated Life with Dr. KJ. I am your host, Dr. KJ, and I am excited and delighted to be in the place today. We are now embarking on our third episode of life-altering experiences. We've had two other installments prior to this. We had Chris Osborne, who shared his journey as an amputee. He was amputated. His leg was amputated because of his experience with a motorcycle accident. And then we had Pastor Jeff Thompson, who came to us, and he is a transplant recipient, not just of one organ, but of two. At the same time, Pastor Jeff, he had a heart and a kidney transplant. That's what it is. Heart and kidney transplant. And so he shared his story. He shared his journey, his ups, his downs. And I want to encourage you all, after you've watched this episode, to go back and check out the episodes that these two gentlemen shared, their stories, their life-altering experiences. But tonight, we have a lady who's coming to share her story. We have a sister friend of mine, a sister friend beloved. Now, I met this young lady. I guess when she comes on, we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more in depth. But I think it might have been 20-something, maybe 25 years ago, something like that. And we were, believe it or not, I was ministering in dance. I was the assistant director of the dance ministry at my church, and she was the director of the dance ministry at her church. And we connected. We became friends. I became auntie to her children. And in the midst of her journey, her life's journey, she has engaged in so many wonderful experiences, but all of them have not necessarily been good. Some of the experiences she's had, they worked for her good, but they didn't feel good while she was going through them. And tonight she's going to share some of what she's experienced. She is going to share her life-altering experience. So won't you join me, Facebook family, YouTube family, won't you join me tonight as we welcome none other than my sister friend, Diane Nathaniel, to Living the Liberated Life of Dr. KJ. Yes. Good evening, sis. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much. Now, Sister Diane, why don't you share with my guests who you are, where you come from, and all that good stuff. Share with them.
She's so animated. I love it. The energy is insane. I am from Brooklyn. I've lived in Bed-Stuy my whole life. She is repping the Brooklyn tonight. Okay.
I was born in Brooklyn, but I was raised in Queens, the opposite of LL, representing Queens, but she was raised out in Brooklyn, right? But I'm born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. Yeah.
So I've lived here all my life. We now say we were made in old Brooklyn because Brooklyn is not the same anymore. So
Right.
For my Brooklynites who are on, you know what I am talking about. I am a mom of 3. I am actually, my first heartbeat has a birthday today. Happy birthday, Jazzy. Today's her birthday. And I'm a newly widowed woman. My husband passed away, 17 months now.
Mm-hmm.
Very new. I'm an educator. I'm a school counselor at Public School 11 elementary schools. This is my 17th year, my first and only school. Mm-hmm. I am a cancer survivor, had stage 3 colon cancer. And I am an advocate for all things health. So I used to say, I'm a cancer advocate, but I advocate for all things health and to anything that eradicates the disparities that Black people are having in healthcare right now.
Wonderful. Now, you named a few life-altering experiences just in your introduction, right? You spoke about becoming a mother. That's life-altering in and of itself, right? And you did it 3 times, right? So you know, that's one life-altering experience. You being a widow, and, rest in peace. We remember and honor the memory of Brother George Nathaniel today. And thank God for his life. And so becoming a widow, like 17 months, yes, it's not a long time. And in the midst of that, that has altered your life, right? But tonight, while all of those things are going to come up in you sharing your story, tonight you're going to share your story of cancer, right? About how you discovered that you had cancer, your diagnosis, your journey, your ups and downs through the treatments, making the decisions about the treatments, all of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the floor now, Diane, just to share with us your journey from the very beginning. How did you find out that you had cancer?
Okay. Um, First, thank you for, hosting a show like this. It is much needed. You cover many different topics. My show is very focused on healthcare, but I love that you have explored and examined and shared and had people to come on and share so many different types of ways our lives create trauma and what it looks like for us and how it could come up with us not knowing that that is what is hindering us from being successful in life or from being whole. So thank you for doing this.
For sure. For sure.
I was diagnosed, wow, it's 10 years ago. March 7th, 2014, on my son's 12th birthday. Prior to that, one way disparities could show up for women, especially Black women, we have complaints. And because we look healthy, because we are young, and because we don't have past histories of certain things, we don't get the full extensive testing that sometimes needs to be done, even if we don't meet that age criteria. And I think they missed a mark, and so many women have been affected egregiously and didn't have to be. And I think when I was 34, I complained of a rapid weight loss. I complained of um, being anemic, like just my iron was, I was always told I'm anemic. And often people of color are told you're anemic, your vitamin D is low, or your iron level is very low, not giving me any types of boundaries or parameters of what those numbers should be to not be low. You get some iron pills and you get sent home.
Right.
Pretty
And that
simple.
also gives other situations, right? The
Okay.
iron pill, the side
Iron
effect.
pills, the devil, right?
Right.
Because then you really can't go, right? I complained of constipation, chronic constipation, and I was told my weight loss could have come from because I had just had my second child, Jalen. Oh, if you're still nursing, that's why you're not gaining any weight. I had chronic migraines. You have headaches, maybe because you're staying up so late. The constipation. Oh, you should just change your diet. There were all these things, and I went to a few physicians and up to a neurologist who prescribed me migraine medication. Those years leading up to maybe in 2000, I also 2007 when I was graduating from undergrad. I had asked for, another assessment. I just wasn't feeling like myself. And again, just a battery of tests, but nothing showed anything. But no one was testing me for cancer. And then in 2000, fast forward 2013, I had like my shoulder was bothering me. Not really sure. Still having constipation. Still being told I'm anemic. All the same symptoms from when I was 34. Now I'm 43 with some of those same symptoms. And I've had two kids since I had a third child since then. I ended up having a cold coupled with the shoulder injury. The shoulder injury led to me having been recommended for a surgery. Before surgery, you do pre-surgical testing to make sure nothing else is wrong before they actually, put you under anesthesia and cut you. It was recommended that I have a hematologist visit because my hemoglobin was level 4.
Mm.
I heard low is like 10, 11, and I was at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
thought you need a reserve of blood. God forbid something happens, even though this isn't a bloody surgery, we want you to have enough blood on reserve. You must you have to get some iron infusions to get your blood levels back up. So they postponed me for 2 weeks. I then had the surgery and was informed I need to continue those iron infusions for like 6 more months. And I was like, what? So literally every month, every other week, I was going to the hematologist to get iron infusions. I eventually stopped going because life got in the way. I was going all the way to 86th Street and Park Avenue in Manhattan from
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn. And then it was like graduation time. It was all the things with my job that disallowed me from being able to be um, having some continuity with that. I then caught a cold that I could not get rid of. They kept giving me like, oh, it's a sinus infection. Then it became a respiratory infection. Then I had a rapid weight loss after a rapid weight gain. So finally, my school nurse said, you don't look well. I think you should go to the doctor. She's like, you're losing weight. And I knew it, but I didn't, I didn't want to lose it this way. But I'm like, yeah, maybe it's the cold, right? Not eating. I switched doctors. My doctor retired. So she said, I am doing my PA degree. And this woman that I'm doing my internship with is amazing. I go to her. She takes my blood work all on her own. Let's start all over. And she's like, your hemoglobin is level 4. And I said, how could that be? I've been doing iron infusions for 1 year. She said,
Mm-hmm.
nobody should be doing iron infusions for 1 year. And I was like,
Wow.
what? She said, would you mind seeing all of my doctors? This is March. I said, yes. I'm fine with that, right? End of February, rather. So we scheduled all of my appointments for like 2 weeks out because most of them were specialists. But before the 2 weeks with the gastro doctor could happen, I had rectal bleeding. And during this time, I had still had the same constipation, still cold. Now I have the weight loss, weight gain, those things. And when you see
And with
blood,
the rectal breathing and with the rectal bleeding, did you just say, okay, this is because I've been constipated? Maybe it's because is that what you were thinking initially? Was that your,
what was happening in addition to that, and this is what women should know, we bleed from two sources, right? Women can bleed from their rectum, and we bleed vaginally when we're on our cycles, menstruating. What happened was my cycle was coming twice a month. So they also thought the anemia was from that. Still, no one sent me to a GYN. Nobody had that blood work checked or any of that. So I naturally thought, oh, my cycle's on. And it's been irregular. So maybe it's my cycle. This is why I say so many things like, God, if I write a book, it's going to be called The Blood. For real, right? I go to
and
the
you're
bathroom.
here because of the blood?
Okay, literally, right? You'll
All
understand why. I did not have a bowel movement when I went to the bathroom. All I did was I just urinated. And I was like, is that blood in the toilet? Oh, my cycle must be on. I prepare like my cycle's coming on. I go to work. I'm going to be very transparent, y'all. I go to work. We go in, we change what we do, and we go to the bathroom. And the sanitary napkin was white. Like nothing had happened before I left my house. So I was like, that is weird. I know good and well this morning. Normally, I don't look in the toilet. We don't look, right? We just keep going about our business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what made me look this day because I would have never seen that blood. I call I called the doctor immediately. I was like, now I know I saw blood this morning. I'm not sure what's going on, but now I'm going to change and there's nothing there. She asked me what color was it? Bright red, like my lips, like our lips. She
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'm going to move your appointment up. Can you come in right now? Mind you, that's March 4th. I go to her. She does an anoscopy. So those of you who are terrified about a colonoscopy, an anoscopy is an in-office exam of your rectum. It's done with a small scope and camera, and it does not hurt. It is just minimal, just so doctors can see with the naked eye what's happening. And she did that. She said, oh, I see residual blood, right? But I do see, like, I don't know if it's backed up stool or something else. So let's just schedule you for a colonoscopy. I was 44 at this time. Remember, I first went when I was 34. 44 now. I go to her hospital where she recommended I come for the colonoscopy, which was March 7th. And during that time, I had no more blood. There was no more blood there was no more blood. Had I not looked in the toilet, I would not have gone to the doctor. I would have just kept moving like, nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
She does the colonoscopy, which the prep takes longer than anything, right? She wakes me up and anybody who's had one of these tests, the nurse wakes you up if nothing's wrong, right? She was at my bedside, but this is my first time, so I don't know. She's like, this is my first time meeting her, y'all. And she's like, Diane, you have a blah, blah, blah carcinoma adenoma. I'm like, what? Anybody knows all the omas means something bad, means cancer somewhere for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? She said, yeah, in the cecum part of your colon. I don't even know what the cecum does, what it is, nothing. I was like, what are you talking about? She sounded like Charlie Brown, womp, womp,
Right,
womp.
right,
What are you
right,
saying?
right. Mm-hmm.
She said, just get dressed and I'll talk to you privately. So now I'm getting dressed. I'm nervous. I'm like, did this woman just tell me I had cancer? I go into the dressing room to change and I just like break down. Now I've scared all the other patients that are ready to go for the exams, right?
Like, oh my God, right, right,
They're like,
right.
I'm not going in there. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
They were kind. They consoled me. And then I got dressed. And then I remembered Jasmine and Jalen, my daughters, were with me to this day because I had anesthesia. And I was like,
Right.
oh my God, my kids are with me. We go into a private space and she then tells me, she repeats it. And she said, you have cancer. I'm silent because I don't know what to do, right? I don't want to break down in front of my children. And then my kids are like following my lead. She said, this is colon cancer. I can't tell you the staging until we remove the tumor. It's 5.7 centimeters and it needs to come out immediately. We could do it laparoscopically. And I'm like, okay, that's great. No colostomy bag. I'm happy about that. But like, what follows? And she said it is a major surgery, Diane, but it's the most treatable cancer when caught early. So then we start like going back to, have you had any other gastro problems? I said I had a ulcer. I had an ulcer and I had H. pylori. You think anybody told me that H. pylori, which is an infection in your stomach lining, can
Just about
lead
to
a
ask that.
precursor to
Mm-hmm.
colorectal cancer? Nobody said nothing.
Mm.
So she said, you did? I said, I did. So she was like, well, I'm going to pull all those records. In the meantime, do you have an do you have an oncologist? I was like, why would I have them in my Rolodex, ma'am? No, I don't have an oncologist. So she
I never
said,
had cancer before, ma'am. Right.
no.
Right, right.
I didn't even know what this was. So she said, she I was her last patient of the day. She's still my gastro to this day, Dr. Arlene Garcia. She said, I
Shout
have a
out
friend.
to Garcia.
Yes, shout out. She said, I have a friend at Mount Sinai, Dr. Martz, and I want you to see him. So I was like, okay. She literally got on her cell phone and called him. She said, I have a young woman here. She's 44. She's not even of screening age. Back when I was diagnosed, screening age was 50. Since then, the American Cancer Society has done all this work to roll the age down, working with the United States Task Force Prevention to make sure that the data that they've collected about how Black people are, we have the highest incidence and mortality rate with colon cancer. They rolled the screening age down to 45. So if you're 45 right now, you needed to have at least one colonoscopy. Dr. Martz was amazing. I tried to get a second opinion, could not get into NYU. And I named them every single time because, these are our premier hospitals. And I didn't call with, I think I might have cancer. I didn't call with, I just want to come in and see your facility. I called with, I'm not of the age to have this disease. And before I go and let these people cut me, I want a second opinion to know that I'm making the right decision. Couldn't get into NYU, couldn't get into Columbian Presbyterian, and could not get into Sloan.
Mm.
So at that point, I was like, they were giving me appointments. This was March 7th, and they were giving me appointments out until May just to be seen for a consultation. So I said, it's God's will that I go with Dr. Martz, right? I started doing my research on him. It seems like he was a stellar doctor. All of his fellowships were amazing. And I just had to pray. And you go in and you don't know if it's spread. So I had to have 2 weeks of nothing but scans to just see that it wasn't in my cervix, it wasn't in my uterus, it wasn't in my breast, it wasn't in my chest, my lungs. Like, it is a very long, arduous process before you even get to surgery. And then I had my surgery. They removed my cecum, part of my colon. They removed 14 lymph nodes, my appendix. I had 14 lymph nodes removed, 4 which were cancerous. And what led me into stage 3 is that it reached my lymph nodes. So anytime the cancer is outside of the wall of the actual organ that has been affected, that changes your staging.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I
Okay.
had 14 lymph nodes, 4 were affected. So they removed everything around it. That's why my appendix were taken, because it was so close to the cecum.
Gotcha.
So they
Okay.
just, to be precautionary, they take out all of the
Mm-hmm.
things, right? And the way
Mm-hmm.
they explain it, I had like 4 holes and then an incision, and it's like they take out your organs, shake and bake it. This is how it was explained to me, so that in layman terms you can kind of get it. They disinfect your organs and then they replace them. Imagine. I know. Imagine.
And
Like how we
so,
take the guts out of chicken. No, how you
thank
clean
you.
chicken. Okay.
Thank you for that very graphic. Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
what I
Okay.
am here for.
Okay. And so now you have now gone through the surgery. What is life like now with the, and before we even get into the after surgery, let me just draw us back a little bit, because it seems like we're progressing really quickly through the story, but there are so many people that I know are watching or will watch this. And you mentioned having 2 of your 3 children with you.
Mm.
At that time, George was still alive. Your husband was still alive. What was it like for you going home and sharing this with your family? What was that process like?
We were actually supposed to go out to dinner because Joshua turned 12. There was no way I was going to dinner, right? This would have just been the worst fake move ever, especially since the girls knew. And so I told George first, and then I called Josh in, and it was just silence. The house just moved in silence for days. Nobody knew what to say. No one knew what to do. Obviously, we weren't prepared for this. There was no life insurance that was going to cover this major whatever, other than what we had basic through work. Um, he wasn't prepared to be a single dad. My kids weren't prepared to like have no mom. I was not prepared to go. And I think them going to school, Jasmine was in her first year of college at AMDA. Jalen was a junior in fashion industries, and Josh was a 7th grader in middle school. These are all the important grades to help you get to high school and help you get out of high school to go to a good college.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
none of it happened. And to this day, I feel guilt about not being present through those moments because George didn't know how to get them through it. He was too busy trying to deal with like how are we going to get through this? Um and so being a
Yeah.
guidance counselor,
And so
I'm
I
listening.
was going to say, Diane, that what's very interesting in this moment is, and I want to reiterate for people that you got this diagnosis, you are 10 years post this
Oh,
diagnosis, right? And so 10 years ago, for those watching, I want you all to just take note that 10 years ago, her family, they heard this news and they were preparing to be a single father, to be, children without a mother, motherless children, right? Diane was preparing mentally to be gone from here. And so often when we have life altering experiences, we don't think about the steps, we don't think about the optimistic piece, right? We think about, okay, this is unto death. We think about it's over. I can't go on that trip. I can't, go to this place. I can't do this, the things that we can't do. And so I want to take this moment, just in this moment, to encourage someone that has received a diagnosis, someone who is a member of one that just because you have been diagnosed with something does not mean that it's unto death. And it does not mean that you need to be preparing eulogies and obituaries tonight. Okay. So I want to encourage someone with that, letting you know that it is not unto death, and to hold on because there's still more life to live. So go ahead, Diane. You said you're a guidance counselor now. Yes.
yeah, I'm a school counselor and I've graduated so many children. Young adults come back to me after having gone through college, yet I didn't have that opportunity with my own kids. So that always brings me a lot of guilt, um, because they didn't get the opportunity. And day in and day out, I have to encourage them about their plight, where they are. You're fine.
Mhm.
College is a for-profit institution, and you can go whenever you want to go. And they're all successful in their own right, but you know how young people are, right? They compare themselves to their peers. They're watching everybody graduate, pledge something, have a baby, have a family, and so we struggle. That's a part of our grief, that we have. So even though I came through, there's all this aftermath that in survivorship nobody talks about, no one tells you about.
Mhm.
And I want to make a point. I said at 34 I complained about the same symptoms I had at 44. It takes a polyp 7 to 10 years to turn into cancer. So if only someone tested me 10 years prior when I was complaining, I may
Wow.
never have had to gone through what I went through, which was the surgery followed by 12 rounds of chemo over a course of 8 months, 48 hours every 2 weeks.
Mm, 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 mm.
So
Then
now,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. You didn't
yeah,
just undergo surgery. You also had to
yeah,
undergo a chemotherapy, right?
yeah,
And so that's a whole nother journey that you had to go through. And if we had just pressed, if we just were more informed, right? And my prayer is that today someone watching will say the next time they go to their doctor, hey, can you check this out? This has been bothering
yeah.
me. This has been a little uncomfortable, or I really hope and pray that we take heed to what's being shared tonight. I really pray that it does help someone to ask the questions, because those
Mm-hmm.
questions can save lives.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about this chemotherapy now. Now you've gone through this
Mm-hmm.
surgery. You had to heal. What was the healing journey like?
Oh, I'm still healing, Keisha.
Mm,
Yeah, I have neuropathy in my feet. I still get neuropathy in my fingertips, which is nerve damage,
yeah.
basically.
Hmm.
I am infertile, and no one talks about that. So while I had 3 kids and I wasn't planning to have any more kids, I'm not infertile because it was time for me to no longer produce eggs. Chemotherapy just zapped that out of me. It's induced, and it's hard to accept as a woman. There are many ways people don't and can't have kids, and that's one of them that people don't talk about sometimes. Medically induced things that can cause infertility. I also have mouth sores occasionally that haven't gone away. I can drink something one day and the next day my mouth is inside filled with mouth sores. Goes away in minutes versus how it was before. But that's still something that I'm left with. Restless
Mm,
leg syndrome, which is just, the shaking of the legs. Sometimes you can't control it. Insomnia, not being able to sleep. So it's like all these things, that chemo leaves you with. My doctor told me with neuropathy, if it doesn't go away within a year, that's what you'll most likely be left with. So
wow.
my neuropathy was up to my elbows and up to my calves. So eventually, once I stopped chemo, as it moves from your system, you regain some things back. But whatever I was left with a year out from that, that's what I have at this point.
Wow. Wow. And I remember we were talking about your eating habits. And certain things that you could not eat, you cannot eat, you can no longer eat, things that you may have enjoyed. Can you speak to us a little bit about your,
Um,
like you do not want to even talk about that.
Kale is my favorite thing in the world. Salads are my favorite things, but I can't eat roughage like that anymore. It has to be blanched. I can do like an iceberg lettuce, but any roughage that has you go to the bathroom, it does the opposite for me. I can't go to the bathroom. So things like that I can't eat. I've had to change my diet around meat, processed foods. So like I was the queen of a good deli sandwich. I'm in the deli for all the Brooklyn nights. You already know. So I had to switch to tuna fish, chicken salad, but it has to be rotisserie. It has to be like fresh, real stuff. Um, drinking out of glass, like it's a lot of things that they don't tell you until you're sick. So eliminating drinking things out of plastic. So even if I have water that comes in a plastic bottle, I'll dump it out and put it into a stainless steel bottle or a glass bottle. Something about the carcinogens in plastics that if we can not use them anymore, it's better for you. If you notice, plastic straws are almost a thing of the past, right? Plastic
I
bags are
just,
almost a thing.
I just saw Poland Spring at the grocery store. They now have the glass bottles instead of the plastic
Oh,
bottles.
wow.
I saw that at the grocery store, I think yesterday. Yeah, the
See,
glass
yeah,
bottles.
yeah. So my Tupperware is all either stainless steel or glass. And or you need to read them that, it'll let you know if it's not made with certain materials that have carcinogens, that cancer causing types of agents in them. What I
Hmm.
wash with, I can no longer use regular soap. I use Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. I've had to change some things because I had skin toxicity from chemo, and anything else will break me out. In terms of food, I like fish. I eat a lot of fish. I'm a seafood lover, but because my cholesterol goes way up here,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
preach to folks about what to eat and what not to eat. I just say things in moderation, but you have to know your body. So I
Yeah.
know that my body can't tolerate certain things, so I don't eat it. And
Hmm.
the sugar feeds cancer, but I didn't
Hmm.
know that. So I was
Hmm.
drinking 2-liter Sprites per day.
Oh my. Oh
I
my.
was eating sleeves of Oreo cookies, Entenmann's butter loaf pound cake in my room. I was doing coffee with International Delight and 3 more sugars. Frosted Flakes with sugar on top.
No, Diane,
You
come
can ask,
on. That's excessive now.
I am never going to lie to the preacher.
Now, Frosted Flakes with sugar and added sugar, Diane.
White and
Okay.
white sugar. And I
Okay.
had no idea why I could not satisfy the craving of sugar. I later learned that. Now I can't drink a soda. I don't eat sweets. My palate won't even tolerate it. So it was very
Mm-hmm.
interesting how after the cancer was removed, so many things I didn't have a craving for anymore.
Interesting. Interesting. Very. So now, what you've gone through has now put you in a place, they say we don't look like what we've been through, right? I know people looking at you today are like, my God, she's cute though, right? But at the end of the day, you have gone through something, right? And it is my belief that God allows us to go through certain things in order to be a blessing to someone else. The trials, the trauma that I've had to go through, as I began to share them, the word of God tells us that we overcome by the word of our testimony. And so now your testimony, your sharing helps someone else in their journey. And so I'd like you to share how you have turned your trial into triumph.
Ooh.
Share with share with us what you've done.
I think after every chemo appointment, I would hashtag beat stage 3, right? And then I would name the actual chemo number that I was completing. Sorry, I'm plugging in. Okay. I didn't want to die on the show, literally, right?
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I would hashtag which chemo number I was completing. So if it was number 3, then I would say beat stage 3, and then I would say chemo down, 7 more to go, something like that. I had to wear this bag. So my medication was done 2 hours in the actual office, the oncology office. It was a really nice suite, no more than like 6 people at a time. My nurses were amazing. Dr. Novoselic, shout out to him. And
Mm-hmm.
this is funny before I tell you that. The hematologist that was giving me the iron infusions that never checked me for cancer turned out to be the doctor they recommended to give me my chemo.
Wow. And when you walked in there, what did you say?
He already knew I was coming because I had to make the decision. When you talked about hard decisions earlier, I had to make the decision to go back. Why am I going back to the place that failed me in the first place?
Mm, mm, mm.
But because I had so little information on this at all, I felt like Dr. Martz wouldn't steer me into a somewhere um, that wasn't going to give me good care after knowing my story about not being able to get the second opinion, about being 44 and all the stuff. So I go back and I do show up. He just hugged me. He
Mm,
apologized profusely. He said,
Mm.
I should have done more. I'm
Mhm.
going to make sure we take great care of you. And he just, to this day, we're friends. I actually saw him
Mm.
at a gala 2 weeks ago,
Nice.
and he has taken great care of me. Everyone loves him, and I don't think it was, he learned from that. I'll just say that he even learned from that. Um, but then I had to wear that machine, and I would do 2 hours of chemo in office, and then I had a nurse to come home, and I would finish my next 46 hours of chemo with this machine that I had to wear on my hip. I had a port in my chest. So they would unhook my port from here, leave the tubing,
I
and then I
remember
would
the
come
points.
home. Yeah, you visited me. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I would finish my medication that way, and I couldn't shower for 3 days. So I know, rest in peace,
After the
George.
after it or
During,
during? Okay, during. Okay. You said
during,
peace, George, because he had to deal with you for 3 days.
dealt with that.
My God.
And anyone who's had chemo knows that your own body gets it gets an odor.
Mm.
It's a scent that the medication gives off, because it's like supposed to be cleaning your insides out. When we used to say in chemo that we're in here taking this poison, dying to live,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
because that's really what it was doing, killing all the good stuff inside of you just to chase these
Trying to
cancer
live.
cells that are unseen. Um, and then I named my pump. Right, my pump needed a name, because if y'all can tell me I could go outside, she got to have a name.
Did you decorate her?
I did not, but her name was Liv. She was named after Olivia Pope from Scandal, because
Oh, Liv. Yes, Livy. Okay. Mm-hmm.
so doing two things at once, right? And I thought I put that on Facebook and had like an entire like competition about it. So Shelton, shout out to Shelton, who named that machine. And I think going to chemo and meeting people who were going through the same things that I was going through, because I actually gave up the first treatment. I was like, I'm not doing this, not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he told me, you're very sick, and if you don't come back, you're gonna have a recurrence.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I was able to get through it with the help of my friend Sutan, who's passed on, but
Mm.
she was one of the reasons Beat Stage 3 also began, because
I'm gonna go
having
ahead and put Beat Stage 3 down here so that everyone
oh
can check out your website. Tell us about Beat Stage 3.
my bestie Helen, everybody knows we were like freaking frack. She came up with this idea. She was like, hey, like, let's create an organization, around this. She gave me a makeover. Um, And I didn't think I was worthy of it, but she was like, no, we're going to do this makeover. I'm going to come to New York, because she lives in California. And she literally styled me. And I thought this was going to be something on her iPhone. I was really like, well, we're going to go outside and take some pictures, right? And she was like, no, we're going to go to Central Park. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, get your hair done. Get something funky. And at the time, I hadn't lost my hair. They told me I wouldn't. Keep that in mind. And so I got it braided up. She said, I want to show you like being victorious, a rock star. So she styled me. I got the Mohawk braids. That's what was out back then. And we went to Central Park. I had lighting assistants. I had makeup by a celebrity makeup artist, Alexis Williams, who does makeup for Essence. And it was like the most glorious day ever. She was like, we need to do this for other people. I was like, what? How, girl? I ain't got no money. We can't do this for other people. She said, we're going to create an organization that uplifts survivors. And we'll try to, make sure we make them whole, treat their mental, their physical, their spiritual, and their fashion wellness, and make them sexy again. So that's one of the things Beat Stage 3 loves to do, is bring folks back to restoration, because it deteriораtes you. People don't want to come outside when they're sick, right? On a regular. If you got a cold, you all stuffed up, you don't want to be seen, let alone going through chemo. And when somebody is going through chemo, like we have a look. When someone's going through dialysis, there's a look. And we feel ashamed. I felt ashamed. I didn't want anyone to see me. I used to call myself a crackhead in the mirror every time I would get up and have to get dressed. I was down to a size 0. I went from 145 to 107. I don't think I've seen 107 since 6th grade. And it was
I ever saw 107, but that's a whole other ministry. That's another episode.
It was very demeaning, and you can't keep your spirit about you, your wits. It is what it is. So we wanted to do something that made people feel good about themselves after going through such a horrific experience.
Mhm,
And then also raising awareness through
mhm,
CAPE Talks, which are Cancer Awareness Protects Everyone. And we started doing these conversations with doctors where we would bring them out of the offices and into the community to talk about the risks that affect folks and might make them at a higher risk to get colon cancer, but to talk about the testing, the different types of tests, because you don't have to just start with a colonoscopy. You could do a fecal or cultural test where testing your blood at home, your stool at home, and then sending it in. Cologuard, that's over the counter now. They didn't have all this stuff when I got diagnosed. And that goes to show you the increase that has happened now that they've got commercials and they've got other ways for people to do testing.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and so those are some of the things we talk about. And then we refer people. I love to link people. I started the Village Lighthouse. It's a patient advocacy firm. And that's one of the things we do. Folks call me and say, hey, my friend got a diagnosis. I'm on it. I'm like, okay, what do you need? You need to get to Sloan, connections at Sloan. You need transportation. I got connections for transportation. You need connections for a doctor. I have a whole Rolodex to help link
Mhm.
people, because I think we get so scared that we get stuck and we don't move. You
Yeah,
don't do nothing, and doing nothing is going to kill us. So
yeah.
just trying to be the link between the community, friends and family, whoever, and my medical community that I've really developed relationships with.
And speaking of medical community and developing relationships, and before I even ask that question, I want to open it up and remind each of you that are watching today. I'd like you all to go ahead and put your comments in the chat, share your comments, ask your questions. I know there are individuals that have questions. Go ahead and ask your questions tonight. This is a great forum for you to be able to connect with someone, get information. We want you to leave this conversation empowered, informed, and educated about ways in which you can better your health and better the health and the lives of your family members. And so, Diane, share with us. You spoke about having these resources. I'd love for you to speak to us about the disparities you mentioned earlier, the disparities between other people that are diagnosed with any form of cancer and those of us that have been blessed to be kissed by the sun, those of us that are people of color, Black folks. What disparities have you seen? Have you
Hmm.
experienced? And what have you done to kind of rectify or to get rid of those disparities?
There's so many, and they're in every facet of a Black and brown people, right? Education, policy, banking, finances, housing,
Mm,
healthcare, you name it. There's always something that's a hindrance for us because we were born with melanin. And as it relates to healthcare, the history, goes beyond what we all talk about, the Tuskegee experiment, Henrietta
mhm.
Lax's story. These are all very common stories that's all they keep talking about. There's so much more. Uche
Yes.
Blackstock has an amazing book. If y'all don't have that yet,
Say
please
the
go
name
out and get
again.
that. The Reckoning, Uche,
One
Blackstock.
minute. Let me put it here and then I'll type it. See if I can pull it up. Spell it UCH.
E.
Mm-hmm.
Blackstock,
Oh, I found
Black.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She's a physician, and it's her book.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
She has
okay,
an
go ahead.
amazing book with
Absolutely.
so much information about historical um, prejudices that have happened to Black people in terms of healthcare. If we move forward even to 2024, it just looks different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for us who experience symptoms, especially women, they are often dismissed. I have two. I I could go in every realm of not just cancer, but in almost every single area of healthcare. They send us home. Tylenol. Women who are complaining who have been diagnosed with endometriosis, but all the time they think we want drugs for the pain when we're coming
Mm-hmm.
in. It's your cycle. that we have missed so many diagnoses and saving so many lives because we dismiss every single thing that people go through because of what they look like. And then the social determinants of health that exist, I think, are the biggest issue where doctors miss the mark. People are coming in with trauma, they're depressed. Not everybody is a drug addict. And I don't
Right.
even think drug addicts woke up and said, I want to be on drugs today.
And we do hurt, and I don't want to get
You
too
know?
deep into history, but
Like
historically they seem to think that we don't hurt, that we don't
pain.
experience pain, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, when it comes to the moments that we do cry out and say we're in pain, our pain has to take different forms, either anger or
Mm-hmm.
rage,
Mm-hmm.
and those types of things, before we get someone to at least say, "Hey, let me look into this. Let me take care of you." And so, this book that you spoke about, it's called Legacy. A black physician reckons with racism in medicine. That's what the book is called. Legacy: A Black Physician Reckons with Racism in Medicine. And so I put her name, the physician's name, and the name of the book there, so that you all are able to go online, check it out. And it's a bestseller on New York Times bestsellers list. So check it out.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she gives more history about other ways and other things that have happened that we are not talking about, that
Mm-hmm.
that impact how doctors show up for us, right? And so I don't want to make it seem like I'm just badgering doctors, because that's not what I'm doing. What I
Mm-hmm.
am saying is you have to advocate for yourself. One of the things I have been fortunate to do is show up at downstate and other medical. I've done it at Stony Brook. I've done it at the AACR College Hour, where I'm talking to first and second year med students
Mm-hmm.
about just 5 tips that's going to help you, be a better physician when you come out of school, because that's where it begins.
Yeah.
The culture begins in school. The way they determine how they're going to treat patients happens how they're being taught.
Yeah.
So we have those open discussions about what you have to consider when you are seeing a patient. You can't treat them all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're all sitting in med school and you're not all learning the same. You're all not
Correct.
even going to be the same type of doctor in the same area of medicine when you leave here. So you should expect that people that walk into your office, it's courage that takes a person to walk into the doctor's office now after COVID anyway.
And that speaks to their bedside manner. Like, gone are the days where we hear
Yeah.
of people actually having this bedside manner, and it's not literal. It's
Right.
really just
Yeah.
respect. It's
Just
respecting the
respect.
individuals that walk in to your practice. Because
Mhm.
guess what? At the end of the day, they had hundreds of thousands of individuals within their cities that they could have chosen to go to. The internet has now made it, you have telehealth, you have all of these
That's
things,
it.
and people will fly to places. They will drive hours to get the care that they feel that they
Deserve.
deserve and that they
Mhm.
need. So
Mhm.
that's really important. Thank you, Sister Sharice G. She went ahead and typed the full title of the book in the chat. And so I'm looking at the chat now, Diane, and someone says, this is very good. Someone said, go, Miss Diane, Miss Nathaniel. That's Sharice again. And so you will come on and put your comments, your questions in the chat. We want to be able to assist you. Diane, earlier we spoke about an organization that was the
Oh,
gastro. Yeah.
yes. If you are looking, most people don't even know. I mean, there's more conversation around it now, but I didn't know, right? I'm not ashamed to be like, I did not know. My pastor, Lawrence Aker, always
Mhm.
says the hardest 3 words are not I love you. The hardest 3 words for people to say is I don't know. For some reason, we don't like appearing as if we don't know some information. It doesn't make you look dumb. You can't know everything, right? We're long life learners. And so I think in trying to figure out how to find physicians and how to create a Rolodex where people felt more comfortable with the doctor that looks like them, because that's very real, right? And mind you, some harm that's been done to me have been done by Black doctors. So I don't want to make it seem like all Black doctors are like, the
Right,
best in the world,
right,
right? It's
right.
all about the training that they receive. But I am saying these are a group of doctors that are amazing. It's the Association of Black Gastroenterologists and Hepatologists, and this is their website, Blacks in Gastro. I was blessed to be on their inaugural talk and like the announcement of their organization, which was probably 3 years ago. They are doing some phenomenal work, and they are gastroenterologists and hepatologists all over the country. So that's why I love them, because they're national. So you can find Dr. Fola May in New York. You can find Dr. Darrell Gray. I believe he's in Ohio now. Like, you can get a gastroenterologist or hepatologist, which studies the blood, from this organization. So, and if by chance, you just want a different person, they're great for recommendations. They've done it for me. And I think it's a good resource for people who are really concerned about finding someone who looks like them for a test such as this.
All right. All right. Now, Diane, we have heard a whole lot about your journey and your story. And now I have a question before I even ask my question. Someone says, what is the best way to support someone close to you that has recently been diagnosed with cancer?
Wow. I was featured in Cancer Today, right? That's another magazine, right? It's an online magazine that has amazing information. So if you're a person that, if you don't want to Google, because sometimes that's not okay, right? Google yourself and scare yourself to death. But this magazine offers much information on topics that people are very interested in.
Say the name again, Cancer Today?
CancerToday.org. Yep. Mm-hmm. She entitled my article, Follow My Lead. I didn't entitle the article, she did. And I think that's really what you have to do when people are diagnosed, is follow their lead. Some people break down, some people withdraw, some people don't want to talk about it. Some people are proactive. They're like, let's fight this. Let's get this out of my body so I can move on with the rest of my life. And you'll find throughout the journey, people have many different feelings. So in the beginning, I told you my whole house was quiet. Nobody was talking. I had 3 young kids and no one was talking. And then they did it in silos together outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have time. I just didn't have time to sit around and cry and be mad. I literally, okay, if I'm going to live, what do I have to do? Mm-hmm. Let me do it. Let me get a support system together to support them too. And help me through what I don't know what I'm about to go through. And I think that's the scariest part about cancer, is you do not know. You don't know. They can tell you whatever they want to. They said, oh, Diane, you'll be able to work with this treatment. Girl, I could not work. They said your hair won't fall out. Well, it didn't during treatment, but 4 months later, I was clear in the back. So you won't be sick from this treatment. Are you kidding me? I threw up the first one and lost 5 pounds from one treatment. They don't know. So I even encourage them to change the language, right? Don't say you won't. Just say the percentage of this many people have not experienced this. The possibility of you doing it could happen. When you give people false hope, because that's another thing that's the disparity. It's the false hope. Stop telling us what we won't have. Stop telling us we can't live through something. So we stop trying. People give up so often because they feel like, well, there's nothing left for me to do but die. Or no one cares. Or, what do I have to live for? Or, just the fear of saying I can't do it. And I didn't think I could do it. I did it. Treatments 1 through 4, treatment 1 was the worst, 2, 3, and 4. I got through it. I was like, oh, this is not so bad. 5 and 6.
Through 1 and 2 to get to 3 and 4.
Exactly.
and some people could probably just say, you know what, I'm not doing this at 1 and 2, and end up just saying that's it.
And people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, people do that. Keisha, people do that. I know somebody that did that. If we think about, for those of you who watch trash TV, however, I followed their story, Housewives of Atlanta, when Nene's husband, Greg, was diagnosed, and he decided not to do chemo.
That was my next question. Yeah.
It was for him. Now, mind you, me and we could all have stage 3 colorectal cancer or colon cancer. It still doesn't look the same in our bodies. And it definitely doesn't look the same for a woman as it does for a man. Right? You can have stage 3 in many different ways. Your stage 3, your tumor location could have been different. The size of your tumor could have been different. Your
And
age
yours
could have
is stage
been
3
different.
because it got in your lymph nodes, whereas his could have been stage 3 because it got in his knee. I'm just, I'm just saying.
It's all about like the walls and the
Right.
lining of where the
Right.
cancer grows. I
Right.
think the reaction, one of the things my doctor did teach me was that your outward biological time clock is different from your internal biological time clock, right? Some of us are 30 in age, your chronological time clock, like your age is 30, but because you've lived such a hard life and done so much damage, some people's insides are that of a 75-year-old person.
My God, my God.
So it's all about your body, where it is when the disease hits you. If you're already unhealthy, then obviously it's going to be a harder road for you. What you're putting inside yourself, if you're smoking excessively, drinking excessively. If you notice in every single disease, they always say the highest risk factors that could make the disease worse is drinking and smoking.
Yep.
Right? Drinking excessively, but smoking, period. It's just not good to help you recover. And I didn't do any of those things. So I think I stood a better chance because I know someone who had stage 3 who had to have a colostomy bag. And once you have the colostomy bag, you have to have it reversed. So there's just,
I don't know if I understand that. Can you just break that down?
Well, because remember the colostomy bag is hooked up to your intestines. So to
Right.
disconnect it, you have to, that's the reversal, disconnecting your intestines from the bag, because that's where your waste will go. You can't, if
Okay.
you, and it's usually for folks who have, rectal cancer as well. But
Yeah.
when it's in your intestines, again, that's why I'm saying your stage 3 could be someplace different than where mine was in my cecum.
Right.
So there are many things that people need to think about in terms of how your body will heal from it, and what you decide to do. You really should talk to your doctor about what the best decision is for you to do. Some people have gotten second opinions after having their surgery with regards to the treatment that comes after. Because a lot of it is the precautionary. They say you can't see cancer cells under a microscope. It's very hard. So they chase them by doing chemo to go through the body and get anything that may have escaped that they were unable to catch during the actual surgery.
So that's why they do the chemo after the surgery.
Chemo is precautionary, yeah, but for most people.
So Diane, let me ask you this. Through all that you've been through, how has your spiritual life changed? How has that been altered? We understand physically things have been altered. We know things within your family dynamics have been altered. We know that your finances indeed have been altered. We know that even in your work life, things have been altered. But tell me, how has your spiritual walk been altered during this?
And I know most people want to hear that I leaned into the Lord, but I was mad. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We need to hear that.
Yeah, I was upset. I was angry. I mean, I'm like, I serve children. I've been a public servant for 28 years now. 17 in the Board of Ed, the other 12 in 4 different agencies in the city of New York. I was the praise dance director, 4 different age groups. I don't even know, 30 years almost. I think I'm a good mom. I read my Bible study. I try to live, a life that is kind to people. I'm compassionate. I'm a good wife. I just could not understand how this was happening to me. So yeah, I was pissed. I was mad. I did go to church eventually when I could withstand like a chemo treatment weekend. Started out being unable to move for maybe 24, 48 hours, then 72, and then it was 3 days, then it was 5, then it was 7, then it was 10. Just to recover as it became cumulative. And I think, at some point I obviously had to look to the Lord, who else I'm gonna look to. And then I had a church family. So I already went to church. So for me, it was, when you grew up, my parents, both parents are deceased. I'm adopted. So even my adopted parents were not here to support me. So it was very different. I couldn't really lean on my family because I didn't know how much they could bear or tolerate.
Mhm. Mhm.
I later learned that every time I get to this part, yeah,
It's okay. It's all right.
I later learned that my children were not going to school.
Mm.
They were um, leaving like they were going to school, and then they would come back home because they didn't want to come home and find me dead. They said that I just would sleep for hours, like days, 3 days,
Mm.
72 hours, just sleeping, couldn't wake me
Mm.
up. So they would put their finger to like my nose, just to see if I was breathing, and then go cry together. And so it was at that point where, and they only told me this probably a year ago before their
Mm.
dad passed. And I felt so horrible. Like you just missed so much. It's not worth it for you to not go get tested.
Mm.
And while that wasn't the reason I found my cancer, those of you who have the opportunity, where you
Mhm.
didn't acquire it in the way that I did, please go get tested. It's not worth it to put your family through that, and since, right, my kids are afraid to go anywhere, to leave. Everyone's very clingy. Um,
Mhm.
and now losing their dad, we're extra like ridiculous,
And
right?
that too was a very unexpected. It wasn't like Brother George was ill. It wasn't like, in your case, you um, you had been ill for a little while. And this now was a blow there while they're preparing for you to transition.
That
The
part.
joke was on you. George is the one who actually transitioned. One day you're here talking to him, laughing and talking, and an hour or two later, with him just complaining of a headache. Wasn't it a headache? I believe it was, or
He had
what was
he was complaining of a stomach
it?
virus.
Right.
Convince
Mm-hmm.
yourself, how, if any men on the call, you convince yourself, right, that nothing's wrong. I just had some bad food. He threw up. He was throwing up. But he was downstairs like on his game or playing music, not really saying anything. Um and then he came upstairs. He looked really tired. And he was just like, I'm so tired. And him and Jalen walk the dog together every night. And she's waiting for him. And she was like, we were like, what's wrong with you? And then he couldn't like stand up, and kind of just fell over on the bed, and he was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. And then he sat back up, but like Jalen was in front of him. I was in on the bed and back, and I'm just like, what's wrong with you? And then he started to just like do this. So I pushed him back up, and Jalen poured water on his face, and we could laugh now because he was like, what you do that for? Right? It woke him up. But then he turned gray. So I'm on the phone calling 911. I was like, something ain't right. I don't want to hear nothing else about you ate some bad food. The ambulance come. Literally, he was just fighting tooth and nail. No, I just need to sleep. I just need to sleep. They do vitals. They were like, his vitals are fine. But Mr. George, let's just go anyway to check you out. I dress him. I'm literally putting on the sweatpants. I don't hear nothing. Stop talking. He's like, all right, all right. Let me just go to the bathroom. He goes to the bathroom. He comes out. He could walk to the ambulance. And then when we get to the hospital, he's cracking jokes. We must have waited, I don't know, 15 minutes. And I started saying, he's saying his chest hurts. I immediately start trying to do an EKG, but he couldn't keep his arm still. He just kept doing this, like, and I hear the nurse getting frustrated. I said, ma'am, can I help? What can I do? She said, can you just hold his hands? Because they have to stick the pads all over you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And before she could do it, he like took this gasp of air that I can't get out of my head. And then the doctor was like, oh, he's just seizing. I said, he doesn't have epilepsy. What do you mean he's just seizing? They whisk me
And
out.
just
Just like
season is not normal, right?
yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. I know at the funeral, I was like, I can't, say that the hospital gave the poorest care, but as you think back out of shock, I'm like, oh yeah, yes, there was some stuff. So they whisked me into another place, and I'm just pacing. I'm like, why they take me out of the room? And now I'm on my knees praying. I'm like, nothing could be wrong, right? This is a stomach ache. He had a stomach ache. And I literally, it seemed like 30 minutes. I don't know how many minutes it was went by. I said, could you please go check on my husband? Can I go back? She said, no, stay right here. She comes back and she says, hey, Diane, well, they're working on your husband. I said, working on him? She said, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're running some tests. I said, working on him. We all watch enough TV to know working on somebody means they're resuscitating them. Something
Right.
else is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She's just standing by me. I'm on my knees and she's rubbing my back. And then the doctor comes out and says, you could bring Miss Nathaniel back. I go back, I sit down, and he comes over and says, Miss Nathaniel, I don't know how to tell you this, but your husband's heart stopped. And I was like, what? Like you have to go back and start it. That's what you have to do. He went back. He probably faked it, but he went back. And he came back. He said, I don't know. He was just talking, and this is so unusual. We've never had this before. I'm like, I don't even know what I blacked out at this part. Pretty sure because I don't remember. I do know the next thing was I was in a room viewing his body, and the doctor came in and said, "Did he have COVID?" Or I said, "No, none of us have been. We're not sick." Does he have any history? Because this happened in 21 minutes. 21 minutes. We got to the hospital at 10 o'clock. At 10:21, he was pronounced dead. And he said, I don't know. I never, like, usually when the heart stops, they make us declare it a natural cause. He said, but I'm going to encourage the medical examiner to see if he would do an autopsy. And he did. And so I won't share that online, but for sure, there was some sort of underlying heart condition that he did not know about, that nobody, and I say we didn't know because, sometimes people know, they just don't share. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think he's a very intelligent person. He wouldn't push himself knowing he had an issue with his heart because
Right.
he loves to play music. He works out. He was riding his bike. He has a lift equipment everywhere he goes to play a party. So that's something you need to do all those things. He's a technology teacher, and I can't imagine that he would have known and just didn't take care of it. So any men on line, one of the major symptoms that everyone always talks about when it comes to heart attacks is like the pain in the chest, the arm hurting and going stiff. But their vomiting is a sign. And I did not know that. I'd never heard that before. So just know, let's not take it lightly. Also my doctor said to me, when we throw up, it's obviously our body reacting to something in our system that it doesn't agree with. So
Mm-hmm.
ginger ale is not the answer to everything. So if you have like with colon cancer or your gastro issues, we always just have castoria. We drink ginger ale. We get some ginger tea.
Yeah, ginger tea. You have to have the ginger tea.
Like it solves all the problems. If it's chronic, it's not just going to go away with gas X. And if you feel bloating and indigestion, everybody is taking like laxatives and doing colonics. You really should just go to a gastro doctor and get checked out. Go to a cardiologist if you're experiencing, like chest pains, chronic heart conditions, or you're feeling really tired. That I have two other friends who had a heart condition, and that's another symptom they complain of, feeling lethargic,
Mm-hmm.
just really, really tired, like winded from one room to the next. You should not be winded. One flight
Yeah.
of stairs, you should not be winded. It's a different kind of tired. And it's something with the valves not working correctly. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert, but I can tell you on those three people, that was consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. Diane, this conversation tonight has been life changing in and of itself. I think those that have watched, those that are watching now, those that will watch in the future, I believe that there's no one that has watched or will watch they can leave this conversation without taking at least one note, one valuable jewel from this conversation. Because whether it be a conversation about your diagnosis of cancer, whether it be the untimely passing of your husband, just valuing the time that we have, just caring for the temples that we've been gifted with, our bodies, and paying attention to the signs, asking valuable questions or probing questions, I would dare say. Even when it comes to, you alluded to this, but we didn't dive into it earlier, but you go and you take a blood test, and they're looking for one thing, right? Whatever that one thing is. Meanwhile, your blood has all this other stuff going on in there, but they're just looking for the one thing. And, unless you have a thorough blood test, you won't know what other things are going on within your body. The fecal matter tests, those tests are important. Just paying attention to the minor changes. I'll share this story really quickly. I thought it was hilarious, but just paying attention to it. I like to drink juice. I like juicing, right? And my favorite juice is apple, carrot, beet. I don't have to tell anybody anymore if you know about juicing, but I love the apple, carrot, beet juice, and I drank it. It was delicious. And a few hours later, I went to the restroom, and my urine was red. It was the color of the beet. Now, I had totally forgotten I had that beet juice earlier in the morning, but I was online Googling what causes your
driving me so crazy.
But later I discovered and I found out that it was because I had the beet juice. But if we would be that adamant about finding out the information we need about even the little things, then we might be able to catch something earlier and just be healthier individuals. And so many people are saying thank you. Someone says thank you so much. You helped me a lot, and I will do my research. Pastor Lacey, all right. Pastor Lacey said thank you, Diane, for sharing your story.
Pastor Lacey.
All better for it. Thank you, Keisha, for this liberating conversation. And then we have people that are just responding. Someone said condolences, but there are many people that are responding to your sharing of your stories. And so, Diane, as I always do with all of my shows, I give you the opportunity to leave us with your last liberating thought. And so before I allow you to do that, I just want to share with each of you that this is not the end of the Living the Liberated Life, life-altering experiences series. We do have a few more coming up, and we are going to speak to some phenomenal individuals. And we're not just dealing with health. I know those last three we've dealt with health, but we're going to deal with things such as our finances, life-altering experiences that deal with our finances, life-altering experiences that deal with the way in which we live our lives. And so I want you to stay tuned. I want you to stay keep your ear to the ground. I need you guys to subscribe. I need you all to share this video, any other video. Go back and check out previous shows. I need you guys to help me help you. I want to continue to be able to bring this information to each of you, valuable information, fun information to you. And I can't do it unless I get you all subscribing and sharing the good news. I know y'all share the gospel. I know y'all share the gossip, but I need you all to share the YouTube. All right. And so with that being said, tonight, Diane, would you please share your final liberating thoughts?
I want to say thank you again. And I didn't mention it earlier, but when I talk about a support team, Dr. Agard was a part of that. She brought me, my skin was cracking, and she brought me some shea butter. She came all the way from, I believe you were in Mount Vernon at the time. So get yourself a team that you have, regardless of being sick. You need a support team and a tribe right now. And I think that's one of the things that got me through. If you have symptoms of bloating, Indigestion, that's chronic. Constipation, that's chronic. If you feel fatigued, if you have a um, unintended weight loss and weight gain where your stomach is distended, you need to see a gastroenterologist. I don't care what age you are, but if you're 45 and older, you certainly need to go and get a colonoscopy ASAP. I guess my last thought would be to advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
And positive expectation sets the atmosphere for miracles. So if
Mm,
you go in with a positive attitude, you're going to come out with the miracle. Don't wait, and don't let people disparage you. You know, the same way you discard a boyfriend because they are not treating you right, or a woman who is not treating you right. It's what we should do in our medical community. If a doctor can't respect you and treat you with integrity, your
mhm,
life is at stake. And so show up for yourself, just like you show up for other people.
mhm.
And hopefully we move to a more a healthier medical community and relationship with healthcare, with ourselves first, and then we can extend grace to others.
I love it. I love it. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I thank God for you. I thank God for your test, and I thank God for your testimony. And I look forward to the great things you're going to do. You're rocking your blue because blue is
The color for colorectal cancer.
the blue is that color blue. Now let's be specific because I
Royal.
know
Royal.
people wear the pink ribbon for breast cancer, and
Yeah, there's a different color for every single cancer. You can find the
yeah.
color wheel online.
So she's
Also,
rocking.
if you what can I say one more thing? If you
Sure.
want to join and become an advocate for anyone that you love, and just and you don't have to have a person that you're standing in the gap for, but we're all 1 degree away from cancer anyway. You can join at cancer.org, which is American Cancer Society. I am a lead advocate, and I represent Congressional District 8, which is governed by Hakeem Jeffries, our, our speaker. I'm
Yes.
so praying for his health and safety. But if you want to join, it's $10. Please join. We also have affinity groups. So we've now created the Black Volunteer Caucus, the Asian Pacific Islander. There are many groups that you could find yourself in a space. We'll just put in your zip code and we'll link you to your staffer in the area that you live.
And how can people get in contact with you, Diane, if they want to? I know there's one or two individuals that I know have been impacted by cancer recently, family members that have recently been diagnosed. And how can they, if they need some resources and they want to get in contact with you, other than you, me telling them? I mean, is there a way? How can they follow you on Instagram or?
Yes, you can. Many people have messaged me through Instagram. My Facebook is Nathaniel Counselor. I know it's crazy. I did it because I had to, but Nathaniel's my last name. Counseling is what I do. So that's the purpose of that. And then beatstage3.org is our nonprofit organization. You can also contact us through there, do a contact, fill out the contact form, or send us an email, and I get right back to folks. And I do take referrals. So if Keisha gives you my number, if she or someone close to her and you need some assistance and linkages, yeah, that's fine.
All right. All right. Well, we thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to all of you joining us for our next few episodes as we continue to roll out informative, impactful, inspirational. This is a ministry. This is a
Mhm.
joy for me to be able to share with you as we all seek to live more liberated lives. And so, as I always say, thank you, thank you, thank you, and live liberated. God bless you and good night.